Hello all my Kenvians, a little change of scenery for today's vlog. Today I'm going to be watching The Shepherd for Once Upon a Time. And yeah, upstairs Jill is taking a nap in the guest room, and well, my office is literally across the wall from where she is currently napping, so I thought in the best interests of her getting a nice sleep, I would come downstairs and watch it here. So I apologize for any weird background noise, whether it's when I'm talking or, you know, any scenes that I might cut in during the actual viewing. The laundry is going, so that can be quite loud. And also, who knows, you might actually see Midna or Bella pop up because I can't really close the doors here. So let's go ahead and get right into The Shepherd and enjoy your stay. Ooh, a dragon. Oh, I'm sorry, a wyvern. Probably, because it doesn't have front legs.
You know, you had the same look on your face before.
What if you choose this? If you choose us? I know where I'll be.
So this episode, that ending to be precise. Oi! Hi girls. The cats are looking at me. Alright, so yes. The Shepherd. And I'm pretty sure I made the assumption last time that this would be the episode where we learn more about Prince Charming / James. And I was right. One thing that I didn't write this down, but it came to mind, is, well, obviously his name is James, and I'm assuming that's his real name. But we're never told the first son, the original prince's name. So I was starting to think maybe that was the prince's name, James, and it got, like, and he just adopted it as well as his life. But no, the mother called him James. So what was the first prince's name? It's never actually mentioned. He's always referred to in the third person. So I can only assume that that's never established, because unless there is a future story where that original prince is still alive at some point, I can only assume that we'll never find that out. If the name is told in the future, let me know. If it's not told, also let me know. But if it is actually told, don't ruin it for me, because I would be interested to find that out. But do let me know if it actually does happen. But The Shepherd. As far as things I wrote down go, and just because it's the most fresh on my mind, Dr. Whale. I have a lot of questions about Dr. Whale. I already voiced, you know, being curious as to who he is. And I'm just going to make this assumption, and I have no doubt that it is way off course, because the story that I'm thinking of is not a fairy tale per se. It is fiction, but not a fairy tale. So what if Dr. Whale is the captain, I can't remember what his name was, from Moby Dick? The last name being the extremely not vague connection to Moby Dick itself. What if that's the case? Now, whether it is or not, don't spoil it for me, because I do hear that we find out more about Dr. Whale in the future, past the first 9 episodes that I originally watched. But yeah, I'm intensely curious about who he is and finding that out. And then the end of the episode. On one hand, he's kind of a scumbag. Not a horrible person, per se, but yeah, I mean, when he went on that date with Mary Margaret, he basically zoned out checking out Ruby. And yeah, there's something about him that I just, as a viewer, kind of trying to take in the energy that he's portraying. I don't trust him. I don't think he's necessarily a bad guy, but there's something dark about him. Like, maybe an anti-hero at best. But yeah, I just don't like him. So, while on one hand I recognize that Mary Margaret's been through a lot as a character recently, and she needs to have an opportunity to be happy. She needs to be able to make her own choices. And, whatever happens with Dr. Whale is one of those choices. And while I recognize that, it's also just like, I don't see anything positive about this character, other than the fact that he's a doctor and hopefully a good one. But, like, as a person, I don't think I would like him. I would probably find him to be a bit of a snake. At least from my perspective. And again, I apologize for the noise of the laundry room. It's been making a lot of noises. None of which hopefully actually got into the final cut of this. Next point I wrote down. Regina having a friend. Like, legitimately having a friend. Obviously, even though she hooks up with the sheriff, they're not exactly on friend terms. It's acquaintances with benefits. Or, well, in the reality of the whole thing, basically a love slave kind of situation. That's not good. But she is able to make the connection with Katherine by becoming a friend. She gets a friend, and even when she says it herself to David later, or no, it wasn't to David, it was it Mary Margaret? But whoever it is she says it to, when Regina mentions about Katherine being her friend, it's with this sort of hesitation. And I don't know if that's to imply that, she's not really her friend, or if it's just she actually has found a friend in this situation. She just isn't, it's hard for her to really understand that feeling. Because by and large, pretty much everyone fears her or hates her or just respects her, and it doesn't go beyond that. With Katherine, she has actually found a friend, despite the fact that everything Regina's doing is really for her own self-serving purposes. So yeah, it's a really interesting concept there. And actually, to build upon that, speaking of Katherine and David, where was it? Where did I write it down? Oh, this concept of losing what you love. And that's really a big aspect of what the whole premise of Once Upon a Time is. The curse took away everything they love, took away everything from them. The magic, the happy endings, all of that. And what Katherine is going through, again, just as that character, her original self in the Enchanted Forest, Abigail, whoo, she's a piece of work. Not a nice or pleasant person, in my personal opinion. But Katherine, unless there's some sort of underlying thing where Regina is almost controlling her to a degree, or she makes her think that she loves David/James when she really doesn't. She seems like she's a legitimately kind person, or she legitimately does care for David. She wants to be with David, and from her perspective, based on her memories, she lost him, and she finally had him back, but she didn't have the person she remembered. She didn't have the person she fell in love with, because that David without his memories was not her David, or despite how much she wanted him to be. And he was just all about Mary Margaret, whether she knew that or not. But yeah, it's easy to hate Abigail because of how she acts in the show. But Katherine is a more humanized version. She is a version of Abigail that seemingly was not spoiled by riches, is not just this snob that thinks everything is below her. She's a normal person who just wants the person she loved back. And in that regard, as much as I'm rooting for Mary Margaret and David to end up together, because obviously Snow White and the Prince, I can't say that I would be horribly upset if that ends up not happening. If that, in the world without magic, Katherine and David stay together. Because it's two different worlds. At least that's my whole perspective on the thing. Now, moving on from there. I've already talked some about Mary Margaret and David. I really like seeing them on screen. I think Charlie's playing with something upstairs. I don't know if that got picked up on the camera. But their chemistry is real on screen. And I can, honestly, knowing that after this season, during the second season, the two actors got married and they actually fell in love in this season, I can see it happening. They have such good chemistry, and they seem like just an excellent couple together. Even though at this point, again, they're separated in that way because of the curse and all that, but I can see the chemistry there, and I can see how it could have led to that love and them getting married. It seems right. It seems meant to be. It could be fate. Perhaps. Ow, my neck snapped. But, moving on from there, a few things. King Midas. I think one of the coolest aspects of King Midas in this story is that gauntlet. And I don't recall it. I don't recall the full story of King Midas, other than he had that golden touch. Everything he touched turned to gold. I don't know if there was ever, and I assume that there wasn't like a magic gauntlet that could like protect people from his touch, protect people, things from his touch. But it really works in this situation. On one hand, just a interesting modernization of the story, but at the same time, it honestly seems like it's something that, for a King Midas based in medieval times, would legitimately work. That in a world with magic, you have an enchanted gauntlet, and this is the one thing that can protect people, objects, anything you touch from turning to gold. Because while yes, it is an amazing gift he has, it is also a huge curse. So yeah, I really like that modernization of the character. And then of course there's the prince, the first prince, who dies very graphically. Holy crap. Sometimes, I'm sure it's popped up in previous episodes, But like whenever there was sword fighting or there was like, someone getting cut with swords, it's like there wasn't really much graphicness to it. But in this one, it's like the brute's spear goes through the prince's chest. It's like, and there's not blood gushing everywhere, but there's definitely blood, and we see an open wound in his chest. And not only that, but when James and the knights are going up toward the dragon, we see all these burned skeletons. Now, on one hand, yeah, in medieval fiction and things like that, it's fairly normal to see, skeletons, like especially if you're in a jail, like, oh, there's a skeleton in shackles, whatever. But in this case, is like not only do we see charred skeletons, but we actually see one guy who, like one of the head knight, I suppose, whose legs are on fire in clear pain, and also those two knights that just get burned down. Now, their scene is not graphic, but it's basically like you saw these guys, and then all of a sudden they're dead and just like covered in char. And again, while it's not the most graphic thing, I did find it interesting that they sort of upped the violence in this episode, and it was pretty well done in my opinion. The dragon wasn't super consistent in how it looked, in my opinion, but it was still pretty interesting, and I enjoyed it when it was there, because it also led to a really cool scene, obviously, with James killing the dragon. And it was well done, in my opinion. It's really loud and annoying. But, let's see here. And more of the interaction with Emma and Mary Margaret. It's just really cool to see that interaction with what I assume will eventually, they will realize it's a mother-daughter situation. Essentially, the daughter living with her mother without them even realizing it. And yeah, it's really coolly done. I like their interactions. I like the fact that Emma is the one giving Mary Margaret her recommendations, her advice when she's the kid. Though, I wonder if canonically at that age, like since Mary Margaret / Snow White hasn't aged, if Emma is actually older at this point. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I really like those interactions. And then Rumbly Pumbly's gift to the king. And really just Rumpelstiltskin anytime he appeared in this entire episode, whether it's with the king, whether it's when he came to meet with James and his mother. It was just really, I absolutely love the portrayal of Rumpelstiltskin, Mr. Gold. It's so well done. And what's the actor's name? Robert Carlyle? I think that's right. He's just excellent. He is a true character, and I enjoy him whenever he's on screen, even if it's as the always with that bit of a dark aura Mr. Gold kind of deal, probably, two favorite quotes of this episode. The first of which comes from Rumpelstiltskin himself. Everyone has a choice. Just make sure it's the right one. That, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, but at the same time, it ties into the story of Once Upon a Time overall, because there's been that theme of wanting to give someone their best chance. You make a choice in order to give your child their best chance at a good life. Added on to that, everyone has a choice. Just make sure it's the right one. And I really like that connection, because it's not even really brought up the give them the best life kind of deal. Because in this case, especially with the mother, two times in her life, it's like they made a choice and it made them sad. It didn't even necessarily give their children the best chance at a good life. It was a choice. It was something, and in the second case, it wasn't even a choice she made. It was a choice that James himself made. So yeah, I love the story. I love how they do all this. And then my other favorite quote of the episode simply comes from the sheriff. Sometimes the cliches are true. With the donuts. Oh, I already talked about Abigail. Now, some of the biggest aspects here, and I know they've already been tied into the story previously with the ring that belonged to James' mother, and how Mary Margaret has it now because obviously she was Snow White. The prince gave it to the one he loved. But one of the things the mother said, and I'm paraphrasing, but true love follows this ring. And at that point, at least, I don't think what's-her-name, Abigail, had even seen the ring at that point. It wasn't shown to her at any sort of time. And given her personality, I can only assume she would probably think it was cheap and she wouldn't want it anyway. But the fact that the first person to actually see the ring, besides James, was Snow White. Again, just really good storytelling. I love the connection there. Really well done. And sort of adding on to the whole thing regarding choices, really ties into that end scene with Mary Margaret and David at the toll bridge. The right thing to do. Back then, James made a choice to, first of all, give away his happiness so that his mother could live and be happy without him, but so that she could live, the ranch could live on, and she would be provided for. He made that choice because he felt it was the right thing to do. He made the choice to go back to Katherine, despite his feelings about Mary, because of the fact that his memories were returning, because he felt it was the right thing to do. And Mary herself pointed out, very rightly, the right thing to do was to not lead her on, which he did, whether he realizes it or not, which I guess he does. And then finally, that end scene there, which, with Emma catching the sheriff coming out of Regina's house and learning the truth about that whole situation. And ooh, does it lead into... it leads into some crazy stuff that this next episode, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, I'm not looking forward to that episode because I know what happens. And it sucks, but, well, you all know because you've seen all of the episodes already, I'm sure. But, yeah, that was The Shepherd, and I'm reluctantly ready to get into The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. And I hope you all have enjoyed this video, this vlog. Please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you have seen the original Discovering Once Upon a Time of this episode, which as always, providing a link to it up here and also down in the description down below. Well, it'll be over here in the last 20 seconds of this video. Let me know your thoughts on, what I had to say back then versus what I'm saying now. I still don't know if I'm going to go back and rewatch those or not, because obviously this is going to be me carrying things on from my current perspective, but all the same, I'm really looking forward to getting caught back up and to get some new episodes recorded so I can get them to Melina and some new Discovering Once Upon a Time can be delivered to you all. So yeah, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Again, please leave your comments down below, and I will see you in the next episode.